Okay. All right, so I'll just begin the introduction, Jeff. I just want to welcome everybody who's here today. We will be listening to Dr. Jeff Zarnick. Before I introduce him, I need to let you know that we are recording this session for those who aren't able to attend. And also, the chat and the Q&A will be open throughout. But just if you drop a question in there, we're going to wait until the end. But you know, I don't want people to not get their question answered. So just drop it in the chat as you think about it. And then we're leaving like 10, 15 minutes at the end to talk about them. So as I mentioned, today's speaker is Dr. Jeff Zarnick. He began his career with the Manchester, New Hampshire Police Department, where he served from 1979 to 2002. During his career, he served as a juvenile investigator, was a SWAT entry team member, civil disturbance unit member, undercover narcotics vice detective, and was a detective in charge of crimes against the elderly, which I know he's going to talk about a little in his presentation. He embarked upon his second career as an assistant professor of criminal justice for Hesser College, where he had served as an adjunct since 1996. He was sought out by SNUCOSI, which is the online division, in 2013 to develop at that time, the new criminal justice program. From that development, he was hired as an associate dean, overseeing the development and delivery of criminal justice, political science, anthropology, sociology, human services, and justice studies. He has published a series of articles that focus on topics ranging from academic clarity, student schema, risk aversion, and more. And he has also co-authored chapters for criminal justice textbooks. For his credentials, he received his BS in Criminal Justice from St. Anselm's, a Master of Science in Human Services Administration from Springfield College, and a doctorate in Leadership Studies from Franklin Pierce University. His dissertation was a participatory study conducted over a 3-year period with upper echelon members of the Boston Irish Mafia and Whitey Bulger Gang, which is insane. We should have a whole seminar on that later, Jeff.
Happy to do it.
He is a member of the Academy of Criminal Justice Sciences, the American Criminology Society, the New Hampshire Association of Criminal Justice Educators, and he consults regularly with local and regional police and human services departments. He is married to Kathleen Zarnick, a nurse practitioner, and is the proud parent of 4 grown children, and he has 6 grandchildren. So as you can see, Jeff is a very worthy speaker, and I hope you find his presentation helpful and meaningful. Jeff, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much for that great introduction. I'm actually tired. I said, did I do that? No, I'm just
kidding. Did all that, yeah.
All in 8 hours.
Yes.
Well, welcome everybody, and I hope that the information that I have today does at least alert you to what this is and how it's morphing, changing, what their tactics are, and what we, okay, as relatively computer literate people can do to be very careful. Now, this is a crime, and it's the crime of theft, okay? And to me, it's no different than someone reaching into your mailbox and taking your physical mail, et cetera, or burglarizing your home or taking things out of your car. It's theft. It's just using, you know, the electronic, let's just say, communications systems, i.e. the internet and the almighty world of email, you know, which is not necessarily the most efficient or effective means of communication, but unfortunately, this is the world we live in. So this is about phishing, how they utilize email, and what you can do. I literally could stop the webinar right now and tell you this probably the best method to deter it is to hit delete, but we'll move on from there for now. But let me introduce you to some of the material here before we move on to the next slide, just some basic history of phishing so you have an understanding of what it is. It's really important to understand that computer-based crimes are not necessarily reserved for the world of the expert like Judith is, et cetera, okay? We need to be very tech savvy, at least to some extent, to be alert, aware, and cognizant of the techniques that the bad guys do when they're looking for your money. That's all this is about. They want your money and your friend's money and your family's money or your company's money. It's about thievery. So you may have heard that there's spam emails, and you've probably heard that there's phishing emails, and they're not the same. The main difference is that spam emails are those annoying emails, right, sent to you to advertise stuff, goods and services, but you didn't ask for them. But phishing emails are different. It's really a little cute name, right, for a very malicious practice. So let it be known that that one particular click, not to scare everyone, could have a devastating effect on you, your family, your work, your business, company, you name it, okay? So an attacker, these attackers, they send millions or even billions of emails that try to convince us that they're from a legitimate source. Keep the word legitimate in mind because that's what they're looking to do. It's a disguise. So you have two types. You have phishing emails that are sent with links or files. When activated, they embed a virus into your computer. Yay, right? And I'm sure we've all done it. It's happened to all of us. So don't feel bad. Okay, this doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. You're not aware of your surroundings. It can happen. It's happened to some very, very astute and very aware people. So don't feel bad if it's happened to you. Spear phishing is when individuals are targeted, often by social engineering, which we'll talk about in a little bit, by hackers or other individuals that want access to your stuff. Okay, it relies on the billions of account compromises that have occurred over the last several years. I'm sure if you've watched the news, you've heard about some of these major efforts, okay, these major attacks that have occurred or the major losses that have occurred from a phishing episode where one person hit click. So over the last several years, and it includes personal details like your mailing address is on there or an account name associated with a site you may know. It looks friendly, right? And isn't that what a scammer is designed to do? Smooth operators. So there are some, a lot of technical solutions, great people like Judith and her team, all the people she's working with, all the great experts out there, always trying to stay at least one step ahead of the curve on the techniques and the tactics that the phishing criminals use. So there's a lot of technical solutions that are available to block phishing emails before they're delivered to your poor email inbox. But these solutions do not necessarily detect and prevent all phishing emails. It's just not going to happen, at least right now. So it's your job, all right? The main point of this, gang, is it's your job at the end of the day to make sure your doors are locked, right? To determine what email in the inbox is phishing and what is legitimate. But take heed. Mike, can we go to the next slide? All right. So as I said before, there's billions of these things occurring all the time. It's a literal tidal wave, all right? And this is what I just kind of recited to you just a second ago. So we can go to the next slide. I apologize. Here's a little thing you can do. All right, you can disable loading images. Now, this PowerPoint deck has some links, and I have a plethora, a repository of great research articles and other associated information about phishing, what you can do about it. I will share this deck, or Judith, you can send it out, or I'll make the information available. And please don't hesitate to follow up with me if you're looking for that information. I'd be more than happy to get it out to you, like how to disable loading these images. So invisible tracking pixels, right? They allow the marketers and scammers to know a message is open. They know that you went in there. They go, ha, you're already in Pandora's box. Big problem. But you can do, there are certain things you as the user, the primary defense mechanism can do. And we can go to the next slide, Mike. Okay. Here's some helpful tips for starters. Don't click on site links in an email. Now, here's the problem with screen reading. You're reading on a screen, right? It's different than a hard copy newspaper or a textbook or whatever it may be. Just be aware that 90% of screen readers don't scroll down, okay? If you're looking at something that you suspect to be phishing, you're not sure about it, make sure that you look at the entire thing. Don't click on anything, okay? And thank you, Judith. So don't click on any links. I'm going to tell you this right now. Like a text message, when you're driving, there's no message, no email that you will receive, all right, that is absolutely unequivocally, an emergency coming from someone else you may or may not know. Do you understand what I mean? So be very, very cautious about clicking on these things because there may be some imperative message embedded in there, or it looks familiar or sweet or nice. And those are the psychological doorways that the bad guys are looking for. So be very careful. Hover over the links before you click. So if you're thinking of clicking and you've got an email client, you've seen like Apple's email, right, that supports it, you can hover over any link and see what it looks like. So to see what they, behind the scenes, what they're looking to do is deceive you into giving your passwords or other private information. Okay, and it has a long tradition. This is how they operate in the cybercrime community. And let me tell you, it's a worldwide community of very bad people. In the early 90s, right, with the growing popularity of the internet, we have seen the birth of this new type of cybercrime, and it's called phishing. And it goes back as far as 1987. In the early age of phishing, right, what they would do is mainly they design their attacks to deceive English-speaking users, but now they've become a lot more advanced. Today, the phishers broaden their attack to cover users and businesses all over the globe. At the beginning, they acted only individually or in small and simple groups. We can go to the next slide, please. Some email apps, and I'm sorry if I'm reading from this, and I don't like, death by PowerPoint, but nonetheless, the information is good. So some of your apps automatically warn you or enable warnings that tell you a message looks suspicious or has links. Now remember, a lot of us get our email on the phone too, so you can lose your phone pretty quick too. So the most common way to prevent these scams, all right, is you're responsible for everyone you're responsible and accountable to. So make sure this information you get, share it with your friends and your family. Let them know that this is real and at least heighten their awareness. The research says the more people hear about it, the more they know about it, the more likely they will become a little more cognizant, a little more aware, and a little bit more on the defensive, okay? And you're not gonna hurt anybody's feelings if you delete one of these things. So this is called forewarning in social psychology context. It's defined as offering information on the pending appeals such as topic, stances, or intents to persuade you. Now, there's a lot of research about that out there, and if anyone's a psychology major, you know what I'm talking about. There's persuasion research, and it has studied these mechanisms that are in place extensively and found that if you make enough noise, there'll be some at least enhanced, not 100%, but enhanced resistance. Next slide, please, Mike. All right, this is when I mentioned that social engineering thing. So phishing is usually accomplished, like I said, through the practice of social engineering. They may introduce themselves as a humble and respectable person, claiming to be all they knew at the job, but they're at the help desk, or they're a researcher. Did you ever get those? An example of using social engineering is what they'll use is a sense of urgency. All right, please submit your information in this survey, whatever it may be, or in these fields as quickly as possible. And then they claim terrible risk will result if you deny complying, all right? And they can scare you, all right? And I know, Judith, if you don't mind, when I was doing crimes against the elderly, it was fear. They built in fear. And Judith, you mentioned your dad. He had been victimized by one of these emails, and he was, then now again, think about how awful this is, fearful of utilizing email. And I saw that. I saw a lot of people that were comfortable with email, et cetera, and they've retreated. And I'm not just saying it's reserved for one particular population. That can affect a lot of people. When you think about compassion, when you think about how evil this is, when your parent, your grandparents are afraid to use email, they didn't respond to you because they were afraid it was phishing or whatever. You think about that type of psychological ripple effect. They may not have gotten any money, but look what they did. They compromised, a family member or friend or whatnot. So they'll say that risk terrible results if you don't comply. And so, for example, they'll say your account is about to be closed, or the service, right? I mean, that was your Microsoft, your Google, your Outlook account is about to be closed down. I got one the other day that said, somebody hacked into my Amazon, and I needed to, and somebody ordered an iPhone for $650, et cetera, et cetera. Now to the unsuspecting, less than cynical person like I am, cynical and jaded, I knew something was up, but I did check my bank account right away because you just never know. So anyway, so you see what I'm saying. I'm sure many of you have received those things. So some social engineering, well, they promise what? Big prizes by showing a message claiming that the user, yes, you have won a big prize or a gift card, which we'll get to later, and to receive it, but as long as you submit what? Your personal information. Now, you realize this is a goldmine for these people. How many people, and when you think about it, how many of you, all of us, if we do our banking online, companies, all their millions and billions of dollars are running around the internet all day and all night. So do you see what I'm saying? So the fox is in the hen house. So phishers, they'll use these technical, social, they'll use their psychological vulnerabilities to get your information, sensitive information, use that information to get your money or go after, a larger target. They can start with you, and then boom, the next thing you know, the whole company has a problem. You can go to the next slide, Mike, and thank you. So this is the basics of it. Again, this is not complex. This is just out and out black and white thievery. That's all it is. So you have an attacker, all right, and they've crafted one of those, psychologically appealing, emotionally appealing, whatever emails. You get it. You click on that email and you go to the phishing website, all right, and it looks like a real website. Some of them not so good. Some of them are really good, and they're getting better. And that's when they get your credentials, your information, and then they use what they have to go after a legitimate website, and bingo, now you've got a big, big problem. It can take, on average, to unravel one of these things, they say a minimum of 600 hours on behalf of the victim to try to get this thing done and shut down, etc. And we pay for this in the end. Okay, so phishers rely heavily on what they call these spoofed emails to start these attacks. And again, by persuading, remember that word again, the victims, that's us, to reply with the desired information. So then today, all of your social networking websites, they use those to spread their poison, to lure victims to their phishing websites. And people say, well, if it's on Facebook, if it's on X or whatever social media platform you subscribe to, it's got to be legit. That's not necessarily true. Okay, so they know how to disguise themselves quite well. There was a report published by Message Labs back in 2009 that estimated that one phishing email occurs every 325.2 emails sent through their system every day. Now that's in 2009. So I'm going to tell you right now, I will say hands down, that number is probably a lot higher. Microsoft research revealed that 0.4% of email receivers were persecuted by phishing emails in 2007. A report published by Symantec substantiate that the amount of phishing websites that mimic social networking websites rose by 12%. And that's back in 2012. So if these bad guys were able to acquire all of your social media login information, now they can send out phishing emails to all your friends using that breached account. And you've probably seen maybe your friends have, their Facebook's account, they've been hacked or whatever. An email that appears to be originating from a well-known person, what happens? Well, it's got to be trustworthy. It's somebody we know. And moreover, phishers may send out fake emails now to your friends using your account, telling them that you face a dire situation. And oh my gosh, help, I'm stuck overseas and my wallet's been stolen. Please send money as soon as possible, right? You've probably seen that. Next slide, please, Mike. So what is it about our behaviors, et cetera, risk taking in general, right? And there's a lot of research on risk. There's a lot of research on risk as it relates to learning and how adults read. And more often than not, when we're reading an email and we're in a hurry, we're looking at words we're either familiar with or words that have a sense of fear built in. All right. So we're looking for those things. It seems important, not reading every sentence, not reading every line, not looking at any particular icon and discerning and scrutinizing it. We rush through these things, which is risky, right? We're trying to, I should say, we're mitigating risk. We think we are by not, so like I said, scrutinizing every word, every line of this particular email and scrolling down so you get the full context and you can detect where there may be some defects like a misspelled word, etc. The logo that they've accommodated or whatever they've manipulated, it appears maybe a little bit fuzzy, etc. But risk taking, every time we look at an email, we have a tendency to rush through these things here because we want to get to what we consider, the mind considers to be, the lion in the bushes. But that's very, the lion's not going to bite you, but it will if you don't pay attention to the entire email. Okay. Survey, here's some more factoids for you. A survey published in ACM magazine, this is back in 2007, gang, showed that internet users, right, that's us, and I'm sure it's more today, are 4.5 times more likely to be victims of phishing if they received an invitation to visit one of these fake URL links that we failed to scrutinize and from a person they knew. Okay, that explains why criminals target these social media, social networking websites, because they want this familiarity so they can bring in what they call trust. That's how scammers work. When I was doing crimes against the elderly, and I had elder persons lose their homes, I had multi-million-dollar cases that ended up in federal court that started off with grandma and grandpa, okay, because it was this wide web of scams where they would bring in family members, their entire network, and then some, and it would accumulate. The aggregate loss would be tremendous, and not just emotion, not just financial, but emotional as well. And I thought that was terrible, especially with the older people. You know, I give a little another factoid. People in their 80s count, they measure the time they have left on this planet by the amount of money they have in the account. And if they've been successfully scammed and they've lost that money, studies have shown it actually enhances, it speeds up the date of their demise. They die earlier, which is sad. So I don't mean to cast a pall, but this is bad stuff. Okay, next slide, please. All right, some local news from your friendly neighborhood dean. This is local. Now look at the amount here, gang. Perpetrators of a $2.3 million fraud against Peterborough taxpayers over the summer initiated the criminal enterprise by compromising the email of, look at that, one town employee. Time to be a little bit more paranoid, productive paranoia, we call it, right? According to a timeline prepared by local officials in the wonderful town of Peterborough, while simple human failure to follow procedures. And we have built-in procedures here at SNU, all right? We're very careful. We have a great threat mitigation team, IT team, et cetera. They're really doing all that they possibly can. But again, it ends up in our lap because we have the mouse in our hand and we are one click away from something this egregious. You think about, this is a town, $2.3 million. That's a lot of money. Well, are they going to get that back? I don't think so. One thing I can tell you as a former investigator, prosecuting these are extraordinarily difficult to almost impossible. Very, very difficult to do. It takes a tremendous amount of time. And when I was working with federal investigators, they had a threshold of loss before they even look at a case. Okay, for the AG's office, it had to be a minimum of $10,000 plus in loss. When I worked with the FBI and U.S. Postal Inspectors, it was a lot more than that before they would even touch it, because the basket of bad actors, okay, is absolutely full. And we're talking trillions of dollars. Here's another one. Threat actors, they dangled the lure of receiving funds from the $1 trillion infrastructure bill and created new domains mimicking the real federal site. They're good at this. Threat actors impersonated the U.S. Department of Transportation in a 2-day phishing campaign, right? You can see here that used a combination of tactics, including, look what they're good at. They create new domains that mimic federal sites so good. They're really good at this. So they look legitimate and they even evade security detections. Okay. So we're only human. We're only human. But again, if you ever, the hair goes up on the back of your neck, you're a little bit suspicious. What is this here? Ask somebody, forward it to your phishing people here at SNU or whatever it may be, or if you're home. Make sure you research it first before you hit click. So between August 16th and 18th, researchers at email security provider INKY detected 41 emails, okay, phishing emails dangling the lure of bidding for projects benefiting from the $1 trillion infrastructure package recently passed by Congress. All right, so think about that. The campaign, which targeted companies in industries such as engineering, energy, architecture, right? Those are the ones that want to get the money. They send these potential victims an initial email in which they're told that the U.S. Department of Transportation is inviting them to submit a bid with big blue button, right? The big juicy blue button, and bingo. One other real sad one was post-Katrina in New Orleans. There was a lot of fraudulent phishing emails going out there for donations, et cetera. And the list goes on and on and on. Okay, so types of attacks. Before you go to the next slide, let me just kind of hit some more anecdotal stuff, call it that. There are different types of attack, all right? Let me see, you have mimicking, mimicking attack. Now, this type of attack, phishers typically send an email to victims asking you to confirm, update, or validate your credentials by clicking on a URL link within the email. Now, you'll see a lot of times they'll adopt or adapt or whatever, implement your company's logo, et cetera, on there. So it looks legit, and they ask you to update your information for human resources or whatever. Be careful of that. Be very, very cautious. All right. And then it redirects you to a phony web page, and boom, Phishers pay careful attention to designing emails that will be sent to us using the same logos of the original website, or are they using fake protocol? And this type of attack, what it's designed to do, undermines customer confidence in electronic trading. So some of the let's just say another disadvantage here or ill effect is the fact that now it makes people more hesitant to conduct business online. That's not good, and I guarantee you there's a monetary loss from because of that, because of hesitancy. All right, next slide, please, Mike. And I talked about a little bit of risk-taking behavior. Now we can get more into, really who is at risk. Let me just kind of move to my deck here. Let me see. That is slide. Yep. People who exhibit greater financial risk-taking behavior, risk-taking is financial domain, were more likely to become the target of scams. They were not necessarily being victimized. Can you go to the next slide, please, Mike? Now take a look at this. Not bad, huh? Those are samples taken from phishing emails. Now look at the logos. I'm a Bank of America patron. That's a scary one to me. I'm sure a lot of you have Netflix, maybe you're a trusted bank or whomever. This is just a small sampling of how good these emails can look. See the logo there? I've gotten a few from, purporting to be from eBay, you name it, and I tell you, they look really good. Yes, this is a scary world we're in. There's no question about it. Okay, next slide, please. Dun, da, da, da. And I want to thank Judith for this, and for every parent out there. Yes, younger people, students, kids, whatever you want to call, right, are fully immersed in the wonderful world of social platforming, gaming, you name it, right? They're always on the phone. I mean, let's just put it out there. I am too. We're all are now. But we're talking about filters and resistance to some of these scams relative to perhaps potential naivety on behalf of a younger person who's not necessarily, tech savvy, or they're not consumers. They haven't been consistent consumers. They might have bought certain things that appeal to their age group, and that leaves them very susceptible. All right. So someone might ask you to pay for something, so pass this on to your tech savvy offspring. They might ask you to pay for something by putting money on a gift card, like a Google Play or iTunes card, right? Which is very appealing. And then give them the numbers on the back of the card. Over. So if they ask you to do this, they're trying to get after you. No real business or government agency. See why that's in yellow? No one is going to do this. So anytime, this is a good point to put this point across. There are legitimate methods that legitimate companies will deploy, and you can confirm with those companies if they're actually asking you for something or relaying a message or soliciting it, whatever it may be. They can confirm it. So don't hesitate to stop. And if they're claiming to be X business, check with X business. Or, like I said at the beginning, if you're not sure, hit delete. So no business is ever going to ask you to do that. They're not going to ask you to pay with a gift card. So anyone who demands to be paid with a gift card is a scammer, plain and simple. Victims of cyber frauds, like I said, there's a lot of research, ongoing research about, the resistance, the scrutiny, who's most likely to become a victim of this thing. So here's some basic information. Victims of cyber frauds are likely to score higher on measures of impulsivity compared with non-victims. So we can say to an extent that younger people, teenagers, there's some degree of impulsivity, that more risk-taking perhaps, but that's not necessarily intrinsic to just say a younger generation. Not necessarily, okay? Victims of cyber frauds are likely to score higher on measures of external locus of control compared with non-victims. So if you don't know what locus of control is, that is, an aspect of your ability to make decisions, the way you hold yourself personally accountable and responsible for those decisions. If you have a low, or a non-existent external locus of control, the people have a tendency to blame others. They kind of rely on luck or chance, etc. So it's about really taking responsibility for yourself and your own decisions and not blaming someone else. But here's a little curveball for you. Research shows that, excuse me, educated people might be more likely to be more likely to hold the view that they can spot a scam, and thereby they spend less efforts seeking out persuasion and deception cues. In other words, they think they know better, and guess who gets hit? And that's based on research. And I can show you the data that educated people might be more likely. You can hit the next slide, please, Mike. Activities such as posting videos, right? Comments, status updates, living in this electronic world, right? The more you're in the sandbox, the more chances you are getting sand in your shoes. The more time you spend in the playground, you probably have a better chance of getting hit by a ball, right? So the more you're in there, the more you're out there. Your information is everywhere, okay? You're the gatekeeper. You are your own security blanket. You're your own deadbolt lock on your information. And I know it's very difficult because we like, we are human beings and we like trust. We like to socialize. We are social human beings. We don't live on islands. We want relationships. We want to buy things. We want to send things. We live in this world right now, which unfortunately puts all of our stuff out there. So all these activities like your videos, your comments, status updates, photos, as well as sending messages, liking posts, all these things, as you know, leave footprints for the bad guys. And they can be rewarding for users. Guess what? Encourages further use of that. It can be very addictive. Serotonin, gang, is a very wonderful internal, I'll call it kind of like it's a stimulant. When you open up an email, boom, you get a hit of serotonin, all right? For fight or flight, if you feel better, like if you're a runner, you're exercising, the serotonin kicks in, you go that extra mile, you feel good. You open a text message, serotonin. You see where I'm going with that? And the more you do it, unfortunately, it's not good for you. This gratification fosters, as you can see, they're frequent. The overuse, really, repetition is bad. Use of social media, which together, if you can't control these activities, guess what happens? Now you're unconscious relative to your habits when you're engaging. You're just kind of walking through these things, and that leaves your doors open. So be very, very careful of that. Be very responsible, be very measured with your time, and be very conscientious of what you're putting out there, because they can use this against you. So the habitual use of social media, notice the word habitual, right? The studies show, makes you more susceptible to phishing attacks because they don't process messages and links with enough attention to detail. Now, in all fairness, all of us here, are inundated with, I'm sorry, I'm getting messages here, inundated with emails. Oh, here it goes. I gotta shut these messages off, Anyway, email, it's nailing me to the wall. This, coupled with certain character, personality traits, right, could lead some of us to becoming more susceptible to phishing attacks than others. So be very conscious, be very aware. This is really about heightened awareness. And the thing about it, this is not just something we want to talk about at the dinner table. This stuff, a phishing attack, can disable an entire business, as you saw in the Peterborough incident. $2.3 million. Next slide, please. So here's just a basic graphic on reducing phishing susceptibility in social media. I'm not going to go through every little line here. Like I said, Ms. Dion can send out this. You can take a look at it. It's just basically a visual, all right, to say, be very aware of what you're doing out there on social media. And you can go to the next slide, please, Mike. Now, this is how they work. And I might have mentioned some of this, so I apologize for the redundancy, but sometimes it's good to hear it twice. So if someone calls you and demands that you pay them with gift cards, you can bet a scammer's behind that call for a call. And once they have the gift card number and the PIN, they have your money. Scammers will tell you many stories, and this is done by email too, to get you to pay them with these gift cards, and as mentioned before. So this is what happens. They say it's urgent, et cetera, et cetera. They say you have to pay right away or something bad's going to happen. The caller tells you which gift card to buy. This goes on all the time. And I'm telling you, to the tune of billions. They might send you to a specific store. Go down there and get it. There are videos of white hat people out there that actually turn the tables on these. And it's actually quite funny, even though it's a very serious issue, how they're able to scam the scammers. take a look on YouTube. I shared a couple with one or two with Judith, and I tell you, as funny as they are, it's just great to see people out there turning the tables on some of these scammers who are absolutely just mind-blowingly just evil. Sometimes they're going to ask you to buy cards at several stores. So cashiers won't get suspicious, etc. The caller asks you for the gift card, the number, the PIN, etc. You get the point. So be very careful of the gift card phishing. This is their modus operandi. Moving forward, I think there's another slide. Here's some more gift card scams and schemes. You can read through these if you want the deck. Caller says they're from the government. Someone calls from tech support, right? You've seen that. Notice everything I put in bold here. You meet someone on a dating website and they need money to help them, right? Take you out to dinner. This is a romance scam. It's terrible. Scammer pretends to be a friend or family member with a big problem. That's a scam. Someone says you want a prize. Think about it. Did you even enter the sweepstakes, right? Scratch your head. Did I? I don't remember. Caller says they're from the power company. They're going to shut it off. Scam. You get a check from someone for way more than you expected. Scam. Don't do it, right? I know I'm going fast through these things, but you can read it. I don't want to drive you crazy. Next slide, please. And that should do it. I want to thank you for hanging in there on this sprint through the wonderful, devious world of phishing. Like I said, I've got a tremendous amount of information that I'd be willing to share through email, real email from me, you can confirm it, etc. If you want the deck, I know that Ms. Diane will be sending this out. Please share what you've picked up today. At least alert your friends, families, neighbors, parents, grandparents, etc. And yes, if you have children, let them know too to be very careful of this. Show them samples so it heightens their awareness as well. Does anybody have any questions?
Any questions from anybody? No. Wow. I guess you filled them in very well,
Everyone's
Jeff.
busy checking their email.
They're going through their email. I'm like, oh my
Going
God.
through
What's
email.
really happening?
Yes.
Exactly. Yep. So, all right then. What I'll do is after I have Jeff's deck. So what I'll do is I'll mail it out to everybody after this, and let anybody you know who may have wanted to come who couldn't. Then I'll be sending out the link to anybody who wants it. Just please ask them to get in touch because we did record the session. And since there's no questions, I'll let everybody go. Thank you very much for attending. I appreciate it.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Okay.
Have a good night.